World War I, also known as the Great War, was one of the most devastating conflicts in human history, fundamentally reshaping the political, economic, and social landscape of the early 20th century. The war began in 1914 and lasted until 1918, involving most of the world's major powers, which were divided into two main alliances. The Allies, primarily composed of France, Britain, Russia, and later the United States, and the Central Powers, led by Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. The origins of World War I were complex and rooted in decades of political tensions, nationalism, militarism, and complex alliances, creating a web of causes that would ultimately plunge Europe, and soon much of the world, into war. A key moment that precipitated the outbreak of the war was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914. The assassination was carried out by Gavrilo Princip, a member of a nationalist group seeking to promote Serbian independence. Austria-Hungary saw the assassination as an opportunity to assert its influence in the Balkans, a region where nationalist fervor and ethnic tensions were already high. Supported by its ally Germany, Austria-Hungary issued an ultimatum to Serbia. When Serbia's response was deemed insufficient, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on July 28, setting off a chain reaction of alliances that quickly drew other European powers into the conflict. The initial reactions to the war were filled with enthusiasm and optimism. Many people believed it would be a short, decisive conflict, lasting only a few months. However, as the summer of 1914 turned into fall, it became apparent that the war would not be quick or easy. The Germans executed the Schlieffen Plan, a military strategy designed to quickly defeat France by invading through Belgium and then turning to fight Russia. This plan initially saw some success, but the invasion of neutral Belgium prompted Britain to declare war on Germany, adding another powerful adversary to the Allies' side. The early months of the war saw rapid advances and major battles, as both sides attempted to gain an advantage. However, by the end of 1914, the war had settled into a brutal stalemate along the Western Front, a line of trenches stretching from the North Sea to the Swiss border. Trench warfare became the defining feature of World War I, with soldiers on both sides enduring horrific conditions in muddy, rat-infested trenches, subjected to constant shelling, gas attacks, and the ever-present threat of machine gun fire. Life in the trenches was grueling and psychologically devastating, leading to high casualty rates and a profound sense of disillusionment among the soldiers. The technological advancements of the early 20th century led to the development of new and deadly weapons, such as machine guns, poison gas, tanks, and airplanes. Machine guns made traditional battlefield tactics obsolete, leading to massive casualties during frontal assaults. Poison gas, first used by the Germans and later adopted by the Allies, added a new level of horror to the war, as it caused agonizing injuries and long-term health effects for those who survived. Tanks were introduced later in the war by the British as an attempt to break the stalemate of trench warfare, but their early versions were slow and mechanically unreliable. On the Eastern Front, the war was more fluid, with large battles fought across vast territories. Russia, though initially successful in some battles, struggled with logistical issues, internal discontent, and a poorly equipped and trained military. These factors eventually led to the Russian Revolution in 1917, which resulted in the abdication of Tsar Nicholas II and the rise of the Bolsheviks under Vladimir Lenin. In March 1918, the new Soviet government signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk with Germany, officially withdrawing from the war and ceding significant territory to the Central Powers. This allowed Germany to concentrate its efforts on the Western Front, but by this time, the Allies were beginning to gain the upper hand. The war also had a significant impact beyond Europe. Many colonial troops from Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean were enlisted to fight in the European theatre, bringing the war to a truly global scale. These colonial soldiers, often underappreciated and subjected to prejudice, played crucial roles in various battles. In addition, the Ottoman Empire, siding with the Central Powers, became embroiled in the conflict, particularly in the Middle Eastern theatre. The British, led by figures like T.E. Lawrence, supported Arab nationalist movements against Ottoman rule, leading to the eventual dismantling of the Ottoman Empire after the war. In 1917, a major turning point occurred with the entry of the United States into the war. Initially, the US had maintained a stance of neutrality, despite growing tensions with Germany, especially over unrestricted submarine warfare, which targeted not only enemy vessels, but also neutral ships, including those of the United States. The sinking of the RMS Lusitania, a British passenger ship with American civilians on board, in 1915 stirred public opinion against Germany. However, it was the interception of the Zimmermann telegram in 1917, in which Germany proposed a military alliance with Mexico against the United States, that ultimately pushed America into the war. The entry of the United States brought fresh troops, resources, and morale to the Allies, significantly bolstering their position. The war reached its climax in 1918. The Germans launched a series of offensives on the Western Front, known as the Spring Offensive, in a desperate attempt to break the Allied lines before American forces could fully arrive in Europe. While these offensives initially gained ground, they ultimately failed due to logistical problems, exhaustion, and the resilience of the Allied forces. By the summer of 1918, the Allies, reinforced by American troops and utilizing improved tactics and technology, began a series of successful counteroffensives, pushing back the German forces. This period, known as the 100 Days Offensive, marked the beginning of the end for the Central Powers. On November 11, 1918, an armistice was signed, bringing an end to the fighting on the Western Front. The Central Powers had been defeated, and Germany was left devastated, both economically and politically. In the aftermath of the war, the Treaty of Versailles was signed in 1919, officially ending the state of war between Germany and the Allied powers. The treaty imposed heavy reparations on Germany, reduced its military capabilities, and required it to accept responsibility for causing the war. The Treaty of Versailles was highly controversial and is often cited as one of the factors that contributed to the rise of nationalism and the eventual outbreak of World War II. The impact of World War I was immense, with an estimated 16 million people, both military personnel and civilians, losing their lives, and millions more wounded. The war left a deep psychological scar on those who survived, leading to a sense of disillusionment and cynicism that characterized much of the post-war period. The lost generation, as it came to be known, found expression in literature, art, and philosophy, grappling with the trauma and futility of a conflict that seemed to have accomplished little despite its immense cost. In addition to the human toll, the war reshaped borders, dismantled empires, and altered the balance of power in the world. The Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, German, and Russian empires all collapsed, leading to the creation of new nations and political entities, particularly in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. The League of Nations was established as part of the Treaty of Versailles, with the goal of preventing future conflicts through diplomacy and collective security. However, the League proved ineffective, lacking the authority and the participation of key powers like the United States, which had refused to join. The economic consequences of the war were also significant. Many European countries were left in debt, and the financial burdens imposed by the Treaty of Versailles contributed to economic instability in Germany, setting the stage for hyperinflation and political extremism. The social fabric of Europe had been torn apart, as traditional social structures were challenged and the war accelerated social change, including women's entry into the workforce in larger numbers. This shift helped lay the groundwork for the women's suffrage movement and greater gender equality in the decades that followed. World War I was a transformative event that altered the course of history in countless ways. It introduced new forms of warfare, including the use of chemical weapons and aerial combat, and raised fundamental questions about the nature of modern conflict and the responsibilities of nations. The war's legacy was not only the physical and psychological scars it left on a generation, but also the deep geopolitical shifts that would lead to even greater conflicts in the future. The lessons of World War I continue to resonate, reminding us of the costs of war and the importance of diplomacy, understanding, and cooperation in maintaining peace. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like, comment, and share.